Good morning, everybody. Today, we're going to be talking about the book Monday's Not Coming by Tiffany Jackson. But before we do, I want to discuss the whole concept of banned books. Probably that's a bad term because obviously nothing is truly banned in the U.S. But we can call them restricted books, challenged books, whatever we want to call them. But let's be honest, there are certain books out there that certain groups would rather people didn't read. 1984 is one of them. Uh, there's a lot of books by Stephen King that's in that. There's a wonderful book by John Green, Finding Alaska, that's on that, and this book today is on that list. Um, and we'll kind of get into why that is a little bit later during my wrap up, because I want people to read this and I don't want to give away why it's banned. But I think that honestly, it's banned for a different reason than what people say, because this book will discuss certain things that in a that society really doesn't want to pay too much attention to. But anyway, let's first off discuss what the plot of Monday's Not Coming is. Monday's Not Coming is a book about a young girl called Claudia and her best friend Monday. They live in Washington, D.C. They go to the same junior high together. They're best friends. Claudia has a slight learning disability. She doesn't read very well. She doesn't write very well. She basically has dyslexia. She's very smart, but she just has trouble reading and retaining knowledge and spelling, that kind of stuff. Very mild form of dyslexia, and Monday helps her with that. And they love hanging out together. They hang out together all the time. They come up with little dance routines together. They act out little skits, things like that. The stuff that any two young girls of about roughly 13, 14 would be doing. And every summer, Claudia and her family go to visit Claudia's grandparents, and they stay for a couple weeks. And when they come home, Monday will always call them. This time, Monday doesn't call. Claudia thinks, okay, Monday might be sick, she might be busy, she might be doing something else. She'll see her when they go back to school. Except Monday doesn't show up when they go back to school. And at first everybody thinks, okay, Monday might be sick. She might be just taking a couple days off, something like that. But as the weeks go on and Monday continues to not show up at school, continues to not talk to Claudia, Claudia becomes curious. And that causes Monday to start looking into why this happens. And she keeps on telling her parents, Monday's not, talking to me. And her parents say, obviously, her parents try to soft code it, but, obviously they think, okay, Monday obviously just met somebody else that she likes better. They're young girls. They go through friends really quickly. They go through boys, things like that. She tells the school. The school just assumes that obviously maybe Monday's family moved somewhere else and she's going to some other school and they just didn't inform them. She tells the school's counselors that there's a problem that Monday's not showing up. And the counselors basically say, well, sometimes, the kids in the school kind of disappear for a while, because they have other things to do. And it's obvious. I mean, and it's made worse because Claudia comes from what could only be called like a middle class family, and Monday comes from a much poorer family, a much poorer area of DC. And so the unspoken assumption among many of the officials is that either Monday has dropped out of school, or she has been moved away, or she's sick, or she's doing other things at night, and they just make excuses for it. I'm not going to tell you what the final reveal is. I really want you to read this book, but it is not any of that. So, what is this book really about? This book, it sounds almost like it's going to be a Nancy Drew mystery. Sounds almost like it's going to be about Claudia looking up the clues and putting together the evidence to find out what happened to her best friend, and then they'll be happy and ride off into the sunset on their imaginary ponies. It's really not. The book is really about the fact that Claudia knows something is wrong. Nobody listens to her because she's young, and everybody expects somebody else to fix it. This book is about how certain types of people, especially you know, especially the lower income brackets of someplace like Washington D.C., just fall through the cracks. How a person like Monday can just disappear one day, and everybody might care. Everybody certainly cares. The school cares, the counselor cares, the teachers care, the parents care, the friends care, but nobody actually does anything because they expect somebody else to do it, or they just make excuses to not look into it. And that's a problem, because what happens to Monday is not pretty, and it's it it was something that could have been avoided if somebody had bothered to look into it. So basically, that's what this book is about. This book is about how sometimes people can just fall through the cracks, and it's not the fault of any one person, it's the fault of the system that allows it to happen. It's very important to actually pay attention to when somebody is saying, hey, this is not normal. We've seen, probably this happens. This book is a work of fiction, but I could assume that something like this could happen thousands of times a year. I don't know how many times, but people disappear, and everybody says, well, they moved away. Well, they got lost. Well, they're sick, something like that, and and something worse has happened. It's it's very disturbing. And while the specific reason for this book being challenged to be allowed in libraries or be read in school is the end of the book, which is somewhat gruesome. The real reason is because this book really says, look, the system's flawed. The system might care about you, but there are times when it will do nothing to help you. And that little bit of knowledge is probably something that should be looked into, that should be learned by every kid. But there is a certain set of people in this country that would like kids to just completely trust the system and not question things. So, anyway, we're going to get into the point where, should this book be read? Yes. Yes. I mean, technically, this is a young adult novel, but to be honest with you, it's worth reading by adults as well. It's the writing is beautiful. It's wonderfully well done. Um, Kids will get an important lesson that, yes, the system is flawed, and yes, it can make mistakes, and yes, trust your instincts. Adults will get something out of by being reminded that, yes, again, the system is flawed. It can make mistakes. You've got to trust other people when they say, hey, look, this is wrong. And I don't really want to get into specifically what happens at the end, but trust me, it is something somewhat sticky, and it's not what you're thinking, or it may be. I don't know. Can't. I don't know what you're thinking, but it's well worth reading. Definitely, just go ahead and pick it up. Anyway, that's the review for this week. Have a See you next week. Bye bye.